Who here remembers the snake that tempted Eve into eating the fruit of knowledge of good and evil? Black Zetsu, in personality, isn't too far removed from that snake. He didn't kill humanity, instead he manipulated them into killing themselves. Black Zetsu was a creature made by Kaguya Otsutsuki. He was a manifestation of her will, and his silver tongue was his greatest weapon. And he used this weapon with enough skill that with mere words, he reshaped the entire world on multiple occasions and altered the flow of history. There were so many things, from the rebellion of Indra to the fall of Madara. Black Zetsu manipulated events to ensure the revival of his master, Kaguya, and it was because of him that this plan was accomplished. But every single time I think about the events that transpired due to Zetsu's machinations, I also think about the possibilities of what might have happened if he'd never existed at all. We're gonna dive down into the deepest corners of lore and Naruto history to weed out all of Zetsu's actions, just to take a glimpse of how the world may have been altered if Zetsu simply did not exist. So grab a beverage or a snack and settle into your favorite chair. Let's rewrite history. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. This starts at the time around the defeat of Kaguya Otsutsuki by her two sons, Hagoromo and Hamada Otsutsuki. She plans to create Black Zetsu to become the manifestation of her will and eventually her revival. All of this planned to be used in the long game, in which she will finally retake all of the chakra in the world for herself. But before she can release this Zetsu, she is unexpectedly sealed away. Kaboom! Problem solved. So how does this change things? Well, it changes things in a big way. We skip forward a little while. Hagoromo has become a father. His wife died in childbirth, but he has two sons now. The eldest is Indra, the youngest Asura. The eldest inherited his eyes, while the youngest inherited his heart. Or at least, that's what we were told after multiple events transpired. In truth, Indra's path was altered. If anyone remembers Anakin Skywalker and how he was manipulated by Palpatine, this is very similar. While one could debate this, it's actually very possible that had Palpatine not messed with Anakin, more than likely he would not have turned to the dark side. Boy, there's another what if to do one day. But let's keep focused on Naruto. The same concepts fit here. Indra Otsutsuki was manipulated in his beliefs. He was intelligent, and slowly his ego was stroked by Zetsu. Zetsu continued to tell him how great he was, and how much better he had become than Asura, and even further, how much better he was than the Sage of Six Paths. It was through this that when it became to pass the title of Sage of Ninshu on, that this came to a head. Indra and Asura were sent to fix a faltering nation. Together, they found a sapling of a god tree that was both making the land fertile, but also killing the people who lived there. Indra merely decided to pull up the god tree and found a well of water below. He would then leave. Asura faced the same problem, but the way he went about fixing it was different. He decided to investigate first and also found a god tree. But instead of just ripping it up, he began to heal people and make connections and ask if he could rip it up. Asura was informed that he couldn't simply do so. While it was making the people sick, it was also making the land fertile, and that was something they needed. Their land had faced a drought, and thus the land became barren. No food would grow. And so Asura went so far as to spend a year digging holes and searching for water with which to build a well. His kindness and determination were enough to influence and inspire the people to help each other. And eventually they find enough water to sustain everyone, and with the elders' permission, they finally destroy the sapling. Despite taking longer, we come to learn that Asura was the only successful one of the two. Indra, despite doing the same, failed to save the nation due to only one source of water being found. And because Indra failed to make connections due to how cold and distant he had become, nobody cared to dig more wells, and thus the nation collapsed from infighting, as well as the drought that was brought on by the removal of the god tree. However, if we remove Zetsu from the story, it severely affects the personality of Indra. Indra's ego doesn't get stroked, which causes him to be somewhat humble, or at least more humble than before. And if he relies upon the connection with his father and brother, he may pick that up. It's not impossible for Indra to return to the light. He did so on 2 separate occasions. When he was at war with Asura in the forms of Madara and Hashirama, Madara was convinced to help found the Hidden Leaf. For a while, he set his beliefs aside to help Hashirama form a country based on peace through love. But he once more chose the other path because he felt that his people wouldn't be treated fairly. Sasuke also almost remained with Naruto and Sakura in the leaf until he was reminded about his weakness, and ultimately chose revenge on Itachi. Zetsu was the cause of all of this. So what happens if we remove Black Zetsu from this story? Let's see. Indra and Asura grow up together, both learning ninjutsu. Indra begins to form ways to use chakra practically, and thus forms ninjutsu, which he teaches to others. But those others slowly begin to focus on their physical growth as opposed to their spiritual. This disturbs Indra. This is actually canon to the original timeline. It's just more proof that Indra's original path was altered. In his original path, in a world where Kaguya's influence is never felt and only the Sage of Six Paths is ever known, Indra continues to grow alongside his father and brother. But instead of growing more cold and distant, his heart begins to draw him closer to his friends and family. Taking to heart the teachings of his father, this causes Indra to lean closer to the way Asura would. And because he wasn't told that he's the best, his craving to be the new sage is weaker. He wouldn't be as upset if he wasn't chosen because his eyes are still on the goal, uniting people through love. And because of this, the way Indra could handle the situation of reviving a country beset by the God Tree saplings wouldn't be too dissimilar from what Asura would do. Now, does this mean that Indra is now superior? Well, probably not. Indra still had an impressionable personality that could give into pride. Asura never really did because he always started humble in all variations of himself, always having little skill until it was developed, showing that hard work and friendship can take you places. So what happens? How does the Sage of Six Paths choose between his sons? The eldest and youngest are in a dead heat, and the little difference between them can be chalked up to a purer heart and an entitlement of birthright. What's a sage to do? Well, simply the exact same thing he would do later, and the very thing he wished he had done before. He imparts his Six Paths chakra to them both, and tells them that they are required to properly propagate ninjutsu. He makes them both the sage, and because of this, the bond between Indra and Asura grows deeper as they recognize one another as one half of a whole that makes them the same level of sage as their father. This does mean that eventually Indra awakens the Rinnegan and Asura awakens Six Paths Sage mode. Sounds nice, right? Well, let's continue on deeper. Indra at this point had never began to teach people how to weaponize chakra, meaning it remained peaceful for a time. However, times change and eventually the beginning of the Warring States period begins, as peace doesn't last between people when we're all only human. This also means that even though Indra never taught people to weaponize chakra, they learned to weaponize it all by themselves. This began a period of time in which it was essentially a shinobi world war indefinitely, though it was not recognized as such because there was no unification of sides. Instead, it was merely a grouping of skirmishes between small nations that used other small nations as their proxies. However, the way this all flows is far different. Given that the Senju and Uchiha clans never split apart, they remain a single clan known as the Hagoromo clan, a clan dedicated to the father of Indra and Asura. Time has passed and eventually they forget where they came from, but the one thing they never forget is that they are a single clan, a family. This clan possesses incredible chakra reserves and it contains the Sharingan. Yes, Madara and Hashirama both maintain the things that made them special, but they also gain that which made the other special. It's not an overly common occurrence, but it is common enough that you will get a Sharingan wielder with deep chakra reserves. These people have a deep connection with the Sage of Six Paths. Hashirama himself retains his usage of the wood release, which is something strangely he is only able to do. Madara, while unable to use wood release, still gains the incredible power of the Senju chakra reserves. The unification of the two clans, which in this timeline never split, creates a clan so strong that they effortlessly end the fighting. Hashirama and Madara together solidify their clan's power by forming the Hidden Leaf, which is open to all who wish to abandon war in the name of peace, further remembering the teachings of Ninshu that all beings are a part of the same clan and thus should be considered family. The will of fire is born, and through refusal to fight, as well as through centralization of power, as all other nations at this time are still caught in a feudal area where smaller states are at war with themselves. Amidst the flames and blood, the first true nation rises in the land of fire. And because of this, the rest of the nations end up returning to peace, as the Leaf Shinobi, following Ninshu, would mediate between nations and find common ground. Madara and Hashirama would enter a duarchy, as is tradition in the clan that they hail from. This allows for them to make balanced decisions. Their office is now known as the Hokages, and yeah, they aren't carving faces on the stone walls surrounding the village. Why? Because it'll just take too damn long to carve 2 heads at a time, would take plenty of money, and it's just impractical if you think about it. I mean, it's good and all to look up and feel like your founding members are constantly watching over you, but then again, we've got Mount Rushmore, and that doesn't really even come to mind when we think of the presidency. In fact, for many people, it's considered a slight on the natives who once lived on the land that the monument rests. But I do not wish to fall down any political pitfalls, so suffice it to say, I doubt the Hokage monument would still exist, although it would be cool to see Madara's face up on the cliff next to Hashirama's. But as you know, peace doesn't last. After the success of the Hidden Leaf, other nations begin to form villages too, and these villages become powerful. This is the formation of the other great shinobi nations, and these nations don't always remain friends. This leads to the First Shinobi World War. Despite their best efforts, they can't stop others from fighting, and when their own nation is dragged into the fighting, the best they can do is defend themselves. However, things aren't quite so bad here in the Leaf. Remember, almost every citizen that originates from the Hagoromo clan by blood possesses incredible chakra reserves and the potential to awaken a Sharingan. And given that, Madara would be stronger, heavens help us, and gives Hashirama Senju the Sharingan. All this being said, I doubt Hashirama would die in the First Shinobi World War, and given Madara's ruthlessness, and yes, he maintains that, not everything changes just because Zetsu's gone, you know, the war ends far more quickly as well. Now, as for the Second Shinobi World War, I don't even think it would happen. My reasoning? The First Shinobi World War of the canon timeline was known to have ended with an armistice treaty because the cost was too great, but the greatness of that cost was not yet known. The world was thrown into what be considered the Naruto world version of the Great Depression. And much like the real-world version of the Great Depression, the world pulls its way out of it through a Second World War. However, the difference here is that the First Great War ends so quickly that the world that nobody has time to lose money in attempting to keep the war going. Look, Madara Uchiha, the guy who legit took out half of the United Shinobi forces as an Edo Tensei, has just gotten a Senju-level chakra boost. And Hashirama, the already legendary Hokage, he now has the Sharingan. And Tobirama has both. So the war will end quickly. The Second Shinobi World War wouldn't last. But this being said, these legends don't last forever. They will eventually die of old age by the time the third, or do we call it the second now, World War takes place. Madara only lived this long because he took chakra from the Ten-Tails husk. He would have died earlier without it, and Hashirama and Tobirama would likely be dead by this time too. Moving on to Minato's crew, despite his emotional disposition, Obito is the strongest in the group. He has greater chakra reserves and Sharingan, well, when he awakens it he does, but this still doesn't change the fact that he dies here. Kakashi would take the Sharingan as offered. Once this war ends, mostly peace reigns. The Akatsuki form, but are mostly wiped out by Hanzo. On the other hand, Nagato and Konan survive because, despite not having the Rinnegan, Nagato naturally possesses the Sharingan due to being closely related to the Senju through his Uzumaki blood. And this also means he's connected to the Uchiha clan. The death of Yahiko would awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, and that also means we get the Susanoo. While he doesn't kill Hanzo, this does allow Konan and Nagato to survive. Thus begins the process of a bloody civil war that results in plenty of death. In the end, Hanzo comes out on top because the Mangekyo, as busted as it is, goes blind, and Nagato has nobody to receive a new set from. Kakashi would become an Anbu as well, but Rin doesn't die, and I assume that they get married and name their kid Obito. Look at me over here shipping and giving names that show due respect to dearly departed friends of the parrots. Itachi never has to kill his clan, and thus Sasuke doesn't seek revenge, nor does his mentality change. Minato doesn't die, and Kushina remains alive as the Jinchuriki. Naruto is born and also possesses the Sharingan, and so with his incredible chakra reserves, being the Hokage's son and having the Sharingan, Naruto is just Sasuke, but better. Naruto would end up on Team 7 after passing Kakashi's bell test. When they receive the mission to the Land of Waves, the only person to freeze in the faces of the Demon Brothers is Sasuke. Naruto compensates though and easily defeats them. They would defeat Zabuza the same, but with less effort. Naruto also easily picks up the ability to run up trees and even helps Sasuke learn it. When it comes to fighting Haku, Naruto and Sasuke actually lose, which causes Gato and his men to maintain control of the Land of Waves, and the Leaf Shinobi slink back to Konoha with their tails between their legs. Then comes the Chunin exams. Given that Orochimaru is possibly still alive now, unless Minato dealt with him where the third Hokage couldn't, he would still attack Konoha. However, he has no interest in gaining the Sharingan, as he likely already has hundreds in storage. This means that the Chunin exams would go on without a hitch until the third round a month after their start. The first round would pretty much go the same, though Konoha compensates due to everyone having Sharingan, making a test like this hard. Even still, it ends with the same world-altering question that will leave you an eternal genin if you fail to answer correctly. But Naruto still takes it because some things never change. The Forest of Death happens and Naruto's team would pretty much set a record because you aren't just Naruto fully trained with a Sharingan and not set a record. And then the preliminaries begin. Naruto would beat Kiba, Sasuke would beat Yoroi, and Sakura and Ino still double KO. Getting the month off, Sasuke trains with Kakashi and learns Chidori, and Naruto trains with Jiraiya and learns Sage Mode. Returning, Naruto beats Neji and Rock Lee is put up against Gaara, who he manages to wound but not beat. Instead, Gaara transforms into Shukaku and begins to wreak havoc on the Leaf. But with the combined might of Sasuke and Naruto, I don't see Gaara winning. Minato and the third Hokage would defeat and kill Orochimaru and, well, the series ends. Nothing big or important happens after this except Toneri and the Boruto era, and Toneri would never win so long as Kumogakure has their death beam. The only issue I have would be if Naruto and Sasuke are strong enough to defeat Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Ishiki. If not, they're kinda screwed unless they pull something out of their asses. While this story seems like it would end well, you gotta realize that hard times make strong men. Without hard times, you get weak men who make hard times. So while the lack of Zetsu really does make things great, it doesn't prepare anyone for the likes of the Otsutsuki clan. Remember, Ishiki came with Kaguya and was betrayed by her, but he began gathering strength which manifested itself during the Boruto era. And if Naruto and his friends aren't strong enough by this time, it's not pretty. All-tailed beasts are returned to the Ten-Tails husk or to a new Ten-Tails, which just makes it stronger. All chakra and natural energy on Earth is harvested, everyone dies, and Momoshiki would likely end up consuming a chakra fruit that is like double or more the potency of what Kaguya took. Feels wrong to end this on a tragedy, but I don't see them growing strong enough without a reason. I guess everyone dies. I suppose Black Zetsu served a purpose. Not only was he here for plot, he gave a reason for the heroes to grow strong enough to defend themselves. But that's just my guess. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do so and like the video while you're at it. We really appreciate it. Be sure to ring that bell if you want to know when we drop more content. As always, peace.